Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Alex, and as you may have already noticed, I'm not French. I'm English, but I've been living in France for the last few years and I've become fluent in French during that time. In today's video, I want to watch, or rather rewatch with you guys, the first scene from one of my favourite films, which is Inglorious Basterds by Quentin Tarantino. Why the first scene? Well, not only because it's packed full of suspense and tension, but it's predominantly in French, in a scene between Christoph Waltz, the Austrian actor whose French is absolutely outstanding, and French actor Denis Ménochet, who plays a dairy farmer. Now, I'm obsessed with the grammar and details, and particularly seeing connections between my native language of English and French. So taking you through this first scene, line by line, and picking out interesting parts of the conversation to show you which things you can use in today's French, which ones you wouldn't use so much, and just other generally interesting and fun parts of the French language which I pick up from this wonderful scene. And by the end, I want to see if we can draw any conclusions that can help you as a French learner know what to say, what not to say, and generally how to become a better French speaker. Now, just as a little caution, it is a scene where a Nazi officer goes to see a dairy farmer in occupied France during World War II. So it might not be the film for everyone, but the scene I'm going to show you has no violence, it's purely dialogue. And stick around to the end, everyone, because I've got a special gift for you that you won't want to miss. So, si vous êtes prêts, if you're ready, allez, c'est parti.
Est-ce la propriété de Perrier-Lapadite?
Je suis Perrier-Lapadite.
C'est un plaisir de vous rencontrer, monsieur Lapadite. Je suis le colonel SS Hans Landa.
Que puis-je faire pour vous?
Now, I like this. This is an example of asking a question in that more formal way where you invert the subject and the verb and use que at the beginning for what. So in this case, he's saying, what can I do for you? Instead of saying, je peux faire quoi pour vous, which is very informal, and instead of saying, qu'est-ce que je peux faire pour vous, he uses probably the most formal way of asking a question, and he puts que at the beginning and he inverts peut and je. But it then has another level to it. It doesn't have, it's not que peux-je faire pour vous. It's actually a rare exception, and it changes the conjugation when you do the inversion. So it's puis-je, que puis-je faire pour vous? And I like that here. I thought that was worth pointing out.
J'espérais que vous m'inviteriez à entrer chez vous afin que nous puissions avoir une discussion.
Here he's using the subjunctive, which is obviously a really tricky tense for us. And one way you know to always use the subjunctive is to use a structure like afin que. Afin que, which is the posh way or the more formal way of saying pour que, so that. After that, you always put the subjunctive. So he said, afin que nous puissions avoir une discussion, so that we can have a conversation.
Certainement. Après vous. Colonel Landa, voici ma famille.
Here he's saying, here's my family, or this is my family, as the English subtitle says. But he actually says in French, voici ma famille, voici ma famille. When you give something to someone, or show something to someone, or reveal something to someone, you say voici. Voici, especially if it's nearby. It has that link with ici, here, being more specific than là, as in voilà. Voici ma famille.
Colonel SS Hans Landa, mademoiselle, à votre service. Les rumeurs qui circulent dans les villages au sujet de votre famille sont tout à fait fondées.
Here he's saying fondées, sont tout à fait fondées, are absolutely well-founded. It's so true that the rumours about your daughters are well-founded. And he uses the verb circuler to talk about a rumour circulating.
Monsieur Lapadite, vos filles sont toutes plus jolies les unes que les autres.
Merci.
This I love, and it took me ages. I had to play it so many times to get it right word for word. But he's saying, as you saw in the English subtitles, your daughters are beautiful, each one more beautiful than the last. And this is interesting how in French they say things like from one to another or each other. They say l'un à l'autre ou l'une à l'autre, depending on the gender, depending on the situation. Here he says, vos filles sont toutes plus jolies les unes que les autres.
Vos filles sont toutes plus jolies les unes que les autres.
So literally it's saying your daughters are all more pretty, the ones than the others. But it means, like I said, your daughters are all beautiful, each one more beautiful than the last. That's what it means here.
Je vous en prie. Asseyez-vous.
So the farmer here, Monsieur Lapadite, he said, je vous en prie, which you may have learned means a way of saying you're welcome afterwards. But it's also used to say please, like please sit down, or please, I'm at your service. Something very polite like that. That happens all the time.
Suzanne, tu veux bien aller chercher du vin pour le colonel?
Here he's using the verb chercher to talk about to go and get some wine for the colonel. Chercher du vin pour le colonel. It does mean to look for, literally, and it often is used for that, but you use chercher to go say, I'm going to pick my husband up from work, I'll pick up my kids from school, je vais les chercher à l'école. It's used to mean to go and get, or to go and pick up, to go and recover something from somewhere, or someone from somewhere.
Mais non, merci beaucoup, monsieur Lapadite, pas de vin. Puisque nous sommes sur une exploitation laitière, je suppose sans risque de me tromper que vous avez du lait?
Oui,
Alors, je préfère du lait.
très bien.
Here he says a lot of things, but I want to point out the fact that he used the verb se tromper, which means to mistake, or to mistake oneself, or to be mistaken. That's a good way of looking at reflexive verbs, instead of trying and logic it out to say like to mistake oneself, which doesn't really make sense to us, but we kind of get it. You can put it in the passive voice. So if they say je me trompe, which is I mistake myself, think about it as I am mistaken. So je suis trompé. I don't think you can say that, to be honest. I think that means something a bit more sinister. But here he says, je suppose sans risque de me tromper que vous avez du lait. So he's saying je suppose, which means I assume, without being mistaken, sans me tromper, que vous avez du lait, that you have some milk.
Tu veux bien aller fermer la fenêtre, s'il te plaît?
This French is quite hard for me to follow, to be honest, because even after a few years, this farmer doesn't articulate amazingly well.
Charlotte, tu veux bien emmener tes sœurs dehors? Le colonel et moi, on a 2-3 mots à se dire.
Le colonel et moi, on a 2 ou 3 mots à se dire. The colonel and myself, we have 2 or 3 words to say to each other. And you notice here he says on a. So even in this very formal setting, and also back in the 40s, he still didn't use nous for nous avons. He said on a, and that should really show you how common on is and how it isn't a formal slang, because they're being very polite to each other here.
Je suis au regret de vous informer que j'ai épuisé l'étendue de mon français. Continuer à le parler si peu convenablement ne ferait que me gêner. Cependant, je crois savoir que vous parlez un anglais tout à fait correct, n'est-ce pas?
Oui.
Ma foi, il se trouve que moi aussi. Puisque nous sommes ici chez vous, je vous demande la permission de passer à l'anglais pour le reste de la conversation.
Certainement.
So here they're going to go into maybe like 15 minutes of speaking English. Obviously, I'm going to skip over this part. But I do want to point out that he says, I understand that you speak fairly good English. Now, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a dairy farmer in France in the 40s would not speak English. I'm going to go as far to say at all, because why would he need to? It's hard enough to find people in the countryside in France these days speaking English today in 2019. So I find it a bit silly, but it's dramatic license. They get to do that in the film. So I'm going to skip ahead to the next French part.
Monsieur Lapadite, je vous remercie pour le lait et pour votre hospitalité.
So here he says, je vous remercie. Very simple, but it's just another way of saying thank you. You can say je te remercie as well. It means I thank you. The verb remercier means to thank.
Il me semble que nous en avons terminé.
Okay, so here he does use the subject nous here. Il me semble que nous avons terminé.
Je vous remercie pour le temps que vous m'avez consacré.
Again, he says je vous remercie, but he also says je vous remercie pour le temps que vous m'avez consacré. Consacré means to devote and therefore given or allowed me. So thank you for the time that you have given me. Alors, there you have it, the bulk of the French in that first scene in Quentin Tarantino's Inglorious Basterds. I think there's plenty of interesting French to take away from that, but what do you think? Let me know down in the comments below exactly what you think and what you think you will take away from this video. In my opinion, even though the conversation was very formal, with both of them referring to each other as vous, there were definitely things that you can use in everyday life, be it in a formal or informal situation, because much of it crosses over. I think it's great that they included in the exchange between the two characters the use of on instead of nous to mean we, because when you're first learning the language, and even when you're intermediate and getting used to speaking, a lot of you with a decent level of French are using nous to mean we, and it's just much less natural. This was a formal conversation, so you're likely to hear both on and nous, but in most everyday situations, you're going to hear on. I've covered this a lot on my channel, most notably perhaps in the interview I did with native French teacher Marion a couple of weeks ago. It's a great interview, so go and check that out if you haven't already. The link is down in the description below so you can watch it after this one. But yes, I'm super happy that they included this to show you that it's not just about informal and formal. On is used even in formal exchanges to mean we. So I hope you enjoyed this video that's a little bit different. Do let me know what you think down below in the comments, and if you'd like me to do this again with another French film or a film with French dialogue, I would love to hear from you. Du coup, that's all I have for you today on this movie, but do let me know whether you enjoyed it by clicking that thumbs up button down below. Let me know in the comments as well if you want me to do this again for either a French language film or an English language film which has French parts in it, just like Inglorious Basterds. Do let me know down in the comments below. And if you're interested in a bonus video that I've made full of 12 nuggets of everyday French that I didn't learn until I arrived in France, then head over to my website via the link down in the description to get your hands or your eyes on that one. Comme d'habitude tout le monde, merci beaucoup d'avoir regardé. À la prochaine. Ciao.